Ever feel like the rules of the game are, I don't know, constantly changing?
Oh, definitely.
Especially if you're trying to follow federal acquisitions? Well, you're not wrong.
Not at all.
Today, we're diving into, well, a pretty major overhaul of how the U.S. government buys things. And we think we've got the inside scoop on what it might mean for you.
Yeah, we're looking at the Trump administration's recent initiative. It's all about revamping those federal acquisition regulations,
Right.
sparked by two executive orders, actually, that just came out on April 15th.
Exactly. And to get our heads around this, we've mostly been digging into an article from Federal News Network. It features Kevin Rhodes from the Office of Management and Budget, OMB.
Right, OMB, the folks overseeing federal spending and regs.
Yeah, them. And we're also looking at how this connects with Senator Wicker's Forge Act and pulling in some thoughts from acquisition experts, too. So our mission today really is just to understand the key drivers here. What changes can we expect? What's the potential impact? And hopefully cut through some of that bureaucratic jargon.
Let's do it. So the big question first, why? Why now?
Good question. What's the core problem?
Well, it's the complexity, isn't it? Anyone who works in this space knows it. The Federal Acquisition Regulation, the FAR.
The main rule book?
Exactly. It's ballooned to over 2,000 pages over, what, 41 years?
2,000 pages.
I know. And a lot of that growth is just layers upon layers of agency-specific stuff, different interpretations.
Oh, I bet. Like cybersecurity rules differing everywhere.
That's a perfect example. Creates huge burdens, makes it tough even for experienced contractors.
Yeah.
It just slows everything down. It's cumbersome.
More like a phone book than a rule book at that point. Sounds like the top levels are finally saying, okay, this is too much.
That's exactly it. Kevin Rhodes from OMB, he made it clear. The president has formally recognized this is a real problem and is committed to actually addressing it. That formal nod is, well, it's a big first step for any big reform.
Right. It signals intent. So these two executive orders from April 15th, what exactly are they trying to do? Let's take the first one.
Okay, EO number 1. This one is laser focused on the FAR itself. The main goal, rewrite it.
Rewrite the whole thing.
Well, the idea is to strip out anything that isn't absolutely required by law, by statute, or truly essential for efficiency and effective acquisition.
Like a massive decluttering.
Pretty much. A much-needed one.
Who's actually doing the decluttering then? Who's holding the red pen?
The EO points to OMB, GSA, the General Services Administration,
Okay.
the Federal Acquisition Regulatory Council, and naturally the agencies themselves. They all get a piece of the action.
And the timeline.
That's the interesting part. An initial draft of this new, leaner FAR is supposedly expected within 6 months of the order.
6 months? Wow, that sounds fast. For government work.
It does, doesn't it?
I mean, is that even realistic? Given how these things usually go, what are the risks there?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Look, it's ambitious. It probably shows how urgently they see this. But yeah, the sheer volume, getting consensus across all those players, it's a challenge. We might see, a high-level draft first, maybe details filled in later.
Right.
The risk, rushing it, missing things, or maybe creating some unintended consequences down the road.
That makes sense. Okay, what about the second EO?
The second one is more about reinvigorating FASA, the Federal Acquisition Streamlining Act.
Okay, that's
The main push here is to really, really prioritize buying commercial stuff, commercial products, commercial services, whenever it makes sense.
Just buy off the shelf if you can.
Basically, leverage the commercial market's innovation, its efficiency. Don't reinvent the wheel, like you said.
Makes total sense. So, okay, OMB's managing this huge thing. How do they stop it from becoming just chaos?
Yeah, valid concern. And it seems like OMB is trying to preempt that. Kevin Rhodes, his main message has been asking for patience and flexibility. He kind of acknowledged that as bits of the new FR rollout, there might be some, let's say, turbulence, people figuring things out.
So asking for a bit of a grace period.
Exactly. But maybe more importantly, you really stress transparency. They're actually setting up an OMB website.
Oh, really?
Yeah, specifically to track regulatory updates, provide buyer guides, just keep everyone in the loop on the whole reform process.
That's actually pretty good. Transparency helps.
It does. And Rhodes also made a point of saying it won't be some closed-door deal. He said the team will be, and I quote loosely here, transparent, engaging, and iterative.
Iterative, meaning they'll listen.
That's the promise. Considering all comments, all feedback. He even said, if the team misses something and someone points it out, they'll reconsider it.
Okay.
Suggests they're open to input from government and industry.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. we get the what and the why, but the how. How does this actually work on the ground? What guidance is coming?
That OMB implementation guidance is going to be absolutely key. Rhodes said it's coming shortly.
Shortly, famous last words sometimes.
Could be. But yeah, experts agree that guidance will be the map for agencies and contractors trying to figure this out.
Right. But even with transparency promises, experts must see some, practical hurdles, right? Implementing something this big.
Oh, absolutely. There are definitely potential bumps. Alan Thomas, former GSA FAS commissioner.
Yeah, I know the name. Alpha Tango Strategies now.
Right. He pointed out how hard it's going to be just to get everyone to agree on what's really essential in procurement.
Ah, the definition game.
Exactly. Deciding what stays and what goes. It's a huge challenge right there. Lots of different opinions.
I can only imagine.
Thomas also floated the idea of maybe doing some field testing first, using deviations, waivers.
Like pilot programs.
Sort of. Trying things out in certain agencies before making it a formal rule everywhere. Get some real-world feedback first.
We're smart.
But he also noted something else important. Not much engagement with Congress so far.
Oh.
Yeah. And he thinks, look, if you want lasting change, you might need some actual laws changed, some statutes updated. And that means getting Congress on board.
So, without Congress buying in, what's the risk? Could this all just be undone later?
Well, yeah, that's one risk. A future administration could potentially reverse course with new EOs or just different priorities.
Right.
Plus, if the reforms technically need legal tweaks, not having Congress involved now could mean hitting roadblocks later, delays, undermining the whole thing.
Makes sense. You need the foundation solid if you're rebuilding the house.
Exactly right. And then there's Jerry McGinn from George Mason's Center for Government Contracting.
Okay, what's his take?
He brings up execution. Like, who's actually going to do all this work?
Good point. Especially with workforce challenges, people leaving federal service.
Right. It's a real concern. Intentions are great, but you need the people power. McGinn really pushes for driving reforms through policy changes that affect the workforce, how they're evaluated. Aligning evaluations with these new priorities. He sees that as key.
Interesting. Okay, now you mentioned this lines up a bit with what's happening on Capitol Hill. Senator Wicker's Forge Act, how do those connect?
Yeah, there's definitely overlap in the goals. A lot of similarities between the EOs and Wicker's Forge Act.
Okay.
Eric Lofgren, he's staff on the Senate Armed Services Committee. He basically said implementation is where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
Maybe even more important than just having the right laws written down.
So it's not just writing rules, it's making sure they actually work in practice.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Lofgren talked about how the Forge Act tries to better knit together requirements, budgeting, and acquisition, especially within DoD.
Okay.
A key insight he shared was that, good policies aren't enough if the budgeting process itself kind of fights against efficient buying.
How so?
Well, he talked about this idea of portfolio management in DoD acquisition.
Portfolio management, like investments.
Kind of. Instead of super specific requirements for, say, the next rifle, you shift to broader capabilities, like small arms solutions.
Ah, okay. Broader buckets.
Exactly. That lets you have more competition, bring in new tech faster within that bucket without a huge process for every little tweak.
Sounds more agile, more adaptable.
That's the aim. And Lofgren also hit on the budget side of that. He mentioned the problem of having tons of really specific budget line items, many tiny ones like a third or under $10 million.
Wow, that's micromanagement.
It really restricts flexibility. So they're looking at maybe consolidating some of those lines, starting potentially in the FY26 defense authorization bill.
So it's not just the FAR rules, it's the money flow too.
Right, it's connecting the dots. Requirements, budget, purchasing, getting all pulling in the same direction. The Forge Act might propose, say, changes to budget authorities to make that portfolio approach actually work.
Okay, so bringing this all together, what's the big picture goal here? And what's the overall vibe? Optimistic, cautious?
Well, Kevin Rhodes at OMB, he summed it up as wanting government and industry to work together better, more effectively, to actually deliver the capabilities needed.
Makes sense.
He sounded pretty optimistic about where it could all end up, believing everyone involved could be proud of the result.
It definitely sounds like a huge undertaking, but potentially with real positive impact.
It is. It feels like a serious recognition that, the way government buys things just has to evolve, keep up with the times, meet modern challenges.
Well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive, super important stuff. So just to recap for you listening, there's this major effort underway to simplify federal acquisitions.
Driven by really a need to slash through decades of regulatory buildup, make things work for today.
Right. And while transparency and collaboration are being promised, actually getting there means navigating some pretty complex bureaucratic and maybe legislative paths.
Yeah. But hopefully this deep dive gave you a good grounding in this big shift. The key drivers, the potential impacts, what to watch for.
Definitely. And finally, just a thought to leave you with. As all these reforms shake out and this new FIR starts to take shape, what specific parts of federal procurement do you think will change the most? And, what new opportunities or maybe new challenges could pop up because of it?
Something to keep an eye on for sure.